Ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between, welcome back to another episode of Books and Buds. We discuss two of the greatest things put on planet Earth, books and buds. So I wanted to give you a brief little announcement about the Jack. We've had a lot of customers asking us to please bring this back. We had some clones and everything else, but we weren't growing too much of it because it wasn't in high demand. But there is a select group of people that absolutely love Jack Skellington. And I don't know why. Everyone's different. It's got a wonderful little scent. It's not overwhelming or powerful or anything like that, but I guess it just gives you just enough of a calming feeling that most people that are real connoisseurs are looking to get that real head high, and get as messed up as humanly possible. Well, this doesn't do that. So there is a select amount of people who just want to feel just right. They don't want to feel too overwhelmed. And I guess this is the strain for them. I don't know. They really prefer it. And a real crowd pleaser, Doctor Who. It seems like almost everybody likes this one. We got this one back. We had 11 plants in the last run of just this, and it's already almost gone. People just absolutely love Doctor Who, and I can see why. It's got a real fruity scent to it. This one's actually powerful. You open this bag and the whole room stinks. You know Doctor Who's around when you zip open a bag of this. People love it. So yeah, we got Doctor Who back and we got Jack Skellington back. So I know a couple of our customers are going to be thrilled to hear about Jack. So that's about it for the bud front on this week's episode. Today, I wanted to mention a book, the Necronomicon. Many years ago, about 20 years ago, when I was still in college, I was going through this time of my life where I was just trying to figure out what religion I was. Christianity kind of just wasn't making sense to me anymore. And I was raised Catholic, but I decided to convert as a very young teenager. So I was having some troubles in my life, and I felt that maybe God could help. I ran to this church of people that converted me, and I became born again, and that didn't make sense to me either. So then throughout the years, I was trying to discover all kinds of things. I was reading up on a lot of Eastern religions, Buddhism. I shouldn't say a lot of Eastern religions, but Buddhism fascinated me. A little bit of the Quran, just trying to see what the hell that was all about, trying to see what Muhammad's story was about. I might do a review later on this fascinating book I found out about Muhammad and how Islam came to be. It was fascinating. But that religion didn't make sense to me. I hope I don't get in trouble for saying that, but Islam does not make sense to me. So I started getting a little bit into the darker religions, like your witchcraft, and I even read the Satanic Bible. I might review that one, but none of them made sense to me. I read paganism, and paganism actually made a little bit of sense to me. I read the complete book of witchcraft, and I thought that was a fascinating story about how Christianity took over that one. But I just thought it was fascinating. I was like, well, let's read the Book of the Dead. So I read the Book of the Dead a long time ago. So that's the background on how I obtained this little number. And a lot of it is, well, let's just dive right into what it is. The Necronomicon is according to Lovecraft. A lot of you, I'm sure, are familiar with Lovecraft. I'm not a big fan of H.P. Lovecraft myself. I did like Pritchard's portrait, but other than that, I just think it was a little too much description and prose. The Necronomicon is, according to Lovecraft's tales, a volume written in Damascus in the 8th century A.D. by a person called the Mad Arab Abdul al-Zared. I'm sure I'm hammering that name, but whatever. So this book didn't do too much for me. A lot of it's incantations on how to raise certain demons from the dead. I have no interest in raising demons. So anyways, this book didn't do too much for me. But I am a big fan of aliens and alien lore, and yeah, that show came out several years ago, Ancient Aliens, and I was just blown away by it. I ended up reading Edward Von Daniken's, whatever his name was, his book, Chariots of the Gods, and I was just completely flabbergasted by this. Like, how are we not paying more attention? So then I discovered that a few of the guys that he has on that show are involved in this magazine. I believe it's called UFO Magazine, and there's a few magazines, and I submitted to them the findings that I found in this book. I figured if it's 800 AD, that's pretty ancient history right there. And I found some of the findings in this particular chapter. It's called, this is where the actual Necronomicon begins. And this is the testimony of the Mad Arab. So I wanted to read to you a quick passage out of this book. I'll make it a quick video and tell you why I thought it was so funny, but I figured that those boys should look into it. They wrote me back saying they would look into it, but I never saw anything in their magazines. I never got any word that they did something with the information I sent them, and I never saw on an episode of Ancient Aliens. So hopefully someone will watch this and push them a little more, because this is fascinating. So, in the Mad Arab's words, when I was only a youth, traveling alone in the mountains to the east, called Masu by the people who lived there, I came upon a gray rock carved with 3 strange symbols. And these are the strange symbols. On the cover of the book, they merged them all into one. But these are the strange symbols that he found on the rock. It stood as high as a man and as wide around as a bull. It was firmly in the ground and I could not move it. Thinking no more of the carving, save that they might be the work of a king to mark some ancient victory over an enemy, I built a fire at its foot to protect me from the wolves that wander in these regions, and went to sleep, for it was night, and I was far from my village. So let's skip ahead, okay? The fire had died to its embers, and these red glowing coals cast a faint dancing shadow across the stone monument with the 3 carvings. Pretty good writing. I began to make haste to build another fire when, at once, the gray rock began to rise slowly into the air as though it were a dove. Rocks don't float, folks. They don't float. So I thought this was interesting. This guy had just drank some water out of a lead cup. Maybe he popped some mushrooms he found in his travels, or maybe we're talking about something a bit paranormal here. So let's read on. I could not move or speak for the fear that seized upon my spine and wrapped cold fingers around my skull. The Dick of Azug Bel, was no stranger to me than this sight, though the former seemed to melt into my hands. Presently I heard a voice, softly, some distance away, and a more practical fear, that of the possibility of robbers, took hold of me, and I rolled behind some weeds, trembling. Another voice joined the first, and soon several men in black robes of thieves came together over the place where I was, surrounding the floating rock, of which they did not exhibit the least fright. I could see clearly now that the 3 carvings on the stone monument were glowing a flame-red color, as though the rock were on fire. So if these things were glowing, that seems to me to be some sort of a technology. So I don't know. I know back then at 800 AD, I don't think people were using floating rocks. I don't think lights existed yet. Actually, I'm fairly positive lights and flight did not exist yet back then, save for some birds that could fly. The figures were murmuring together in prayer or invocation, of which only a few words could be heard, and these in some unknown tongue, though Anu, have mercy on my soul, these rituals are not unknown to me any longer. It's just a fascinating story. So let me just break it. Oh, these are the 3 symbols that were carved upon the rock, and those are the ones that you see in the front of the book. So these symbols started glowing, and I'm just going to break down the rest of this for you. He describes a light coming up from underneath this rock, and then demons coming out from the earth. So what I see is like a UFO rising from the ground, and a beam of light coming from underneath this craft, with beings either coming in or out of it, and he just might have perceived this as demons coming from out of the ground. Now, I know a lot of people see alien lore as being unreasonable as well, but I mean, back then, I personally believe that demons crawling up from the earth were unreasonable as well. So maybe in another, I don't know, another few centuries, we'll look back on this story and go, gee whiz, everybody was wrong. It was none of these things, and I don't know. We'll all just realize that we're all stupid in our imaginations. Got the best of us back in these ancient times. But I thought this was just such a fascinating book, the way he described some of these things. It reminded me of another book I read called The 13th Warrior. That was written by Crichton. I might review that one sometime, because Crichton was pretty fascinating too. But it was about a diary he had stumbled upon, apparently, and he was writing about another Arab who was up visiting the land of the Vikings, and on some of his voyages, he was describing these monsters of the sea and how they breathe smoke. And all I could think of was, I think those are whales, man. I think those are whales, and I think you just saw the mist coming up from their blowholes as they were exhaling. Or it's just like these things. It's not scary once you figure out what they are. And I believe whatever the hell this rock was, if it was an actual floating rock with demons underneath it, maybe the rock was plugging a hole in the earth or something, like a cork in a bottle. Maybe it's aliens, UFOs, and these little rogue thief creatures were actually extraterrestrials visiting Earth. Or maybe it was something else entirely, and we're all just a bunch of crazy Neanderthals with our imaginations getting the best of us. But that's why I like religion. It's just so fascinating to see what people can make of things that later on make complete sense when you put a little science to it. And that's why I wanted to share this video with you today. So, to sum up this little video, Jack Skellington, Doctor Who, Necronomicon. Books and buds, folks. I just love it. Keep an open mind. Hey, if you got any enjoyment out of this, please like, please share, please subscribe, or comment below and tell me if you think I suck. I like hearing that I suck. I think it's fun. I like hearing that I'm a good guy, too. So if you think that I'm awesome, post that as well. Don't forget to tell your friends. And you could have clicked on any book review channel, but for some reason you decided to click on this one. I love the hell out of you for it. You guys have an awesome day.